Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on episode 160, I had the pleasure of speaking to Gavin Boyter. He is a writer, filmmaker, author, also an ultrarunner. We talked about many things on the podcast today. We talked about his amazing running journey from Paris to Istanbul. We also talked about his book. His books actually. Basically, we talked about running the Orient, downhill from here, and his book of short stories, Running Coyote and Falling Star. I've got to say, he was a very interesting chap to speak to. I look forward to speaking to him again in the future. And yeah, you know what? I might actually join him on one of his crazy adventures sometime in the near future. So please sit back, enjoy the podcast, and please don't forget, subscribe. It helps us out immensely. Have a good one, guys, and yeah, be awesome. Peace. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on the podcast, I'm very privileged to have Gavin Boyter on the podcast. He is a writer, filmmaker, author, and ultra runner. I got to say, this guy has done some sick distance in his time. I call him to say this. He calls himself a masochist. Hey, Gavin, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm fine. Although I just went for my first run 3 days after running up and down Ben Nevis. I haven't told you this actually yet. I ran up and down Britain's tallest mountain, and I'm really feeling it today. I can tell you that.
Wait. Okay. Now, no. What possessed you to run up and down Ben Nevis? May I ask?
Because it's there. No, I'm actually writing a book called 50 at 50, Running Adventures in Middle Age, because I hit that milestone. And also because lockdown happened and I wanted another running adventure project, but travel was impossible. And I didn't have sort of the reserves to sort of arrange something big. So I thought, well, I'll just do a bunch of different little runs. Everything from going on a park run, 5K park run, which I've never done,
Yeah.
to an 100-mile ultra marathon, and all sorts of funny little challenges in between. And I'll just write 50 chapters, quite 50 short chapters, like describing each run. So the Ben Nevis one was just, is that possible? Can you run up it? And the fact is there's quite a manageable tourist path, although it is stepped, but it's quite a gradual slope at the beginning. So the first half of it is not too difficult to run. After that, it gets progressively more agonizing, and then at the top you're in some sort of blasted wilderness of just cloud and rain and people coming out of the mist at you, and big blocks of slate everywhere, and it's like the moon or something up there. But yeah, that's quite an adventure.
Like from park runs to running up Ben Nevis. It's like that is quite how can I say, a broad running sort of like path, I would say, or like, yeah, appetite. Because okay, doing a park run, I've done a number of park runs myself, and it's like, yeah, you like, how can I put it? For myself, you're there, it's meant to be fun and all of this, but then there's that sort of group of 3 or 4 where you've been running with each other all the way through,
yeah,
and the competitive edge kicks in. Like, do you just sort of blast through a park run, or is it just a case of, yeah, you go with the pace, you're easy going? I don't know how.
well, I haven't done the park run experience yet, so you've got more experience there than me. I did used to do 5Ks with a running club in Ealing when I was a member of a running club there.
Yeah.
And that was just every week, every month, the running club would have their own 5K. And yeah, it gets very competitive because you always, as you say, you target 1 or 2 people that are about the same fitness level, and you never want them to be always beating you,
Yeah.
And no matter how non-competitive you might think you are, you are kind of measuring yourself against 2 things. One, people are roughly the same age and ability, and where you think you should be.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean, I would go flat out at a 5K and probably suffer horribly as a result. I'm not good at pacing, and the shorter the race, the worse it is, I think.
Yeah, no, like that. I think that's always the tricky one where you like when you go, oh yeah, I do ultra running and everything like this. Like when you're with people, like because with ultra running, or when you're running a great distance, you're kind of out there by yourself. You might see one or two people, and then it's kind of like, yeah, like when I'm saying this from my experience because there was a like this year there was I did between 19 to 24 miles every day for 31
Wow,
days.
that's
So
great. Yeah.
so it's like, yeah, I kind of get ultra running a little, but like I'm just like my experience is, yeah, you kind of there by yourself. When you run with other people, you run to the sort of pace of the group and you can get gassed out quite quickly. I don't know how it is for you when you've been like doing your ultra runs and like how did you get, yeah. So what is it like?
Yeah, well, it came out of, I was doing running for fitness, and I did the London Marathon when I was 34. That was the first race I did of any kind. The first time I ran with any other people was with 40,000 people at the London Marathon. So I started dramatically. But after I'd done a few marathons, my time wasn't getting any better, really. It sort of peaked quite quickly and then it started falling away. And one day I was out doing a training run for another marathon, I think, possibly for my third attempt at London. And I saw these people in there, I think they were quite, late 40s, 50s, even older. And they were running jogging speed, but they had numbers on, race numbers. They were chatting, some of them were even running in pairs and having a chat. I thought, what kind of a race is this? Where you can just run along having a chat at a sort of ambling pace. But when I was running up the canal from Brentford up, it eventually goes to Birmingham, but and I passed some marshals by one of the bridges, and they were manning a little aid station or something. I said, "What race is this? Who are these people?" And they said, "Yeah, it's called Tring to Town." I thought, I don't know where Tring is, but I think it's pretty far out of London.
Yeah.
And it turned out it's 40 miles away. So they'd run 40 miles, but they were running, or was it called, I think it's called Town to Tring actually, and they were running in the opposite direction. So I said, well, if it's called Town to Tring, why are they running towards London? And they said, well, this is the Sunday. On the Saturday, they run, let me get this right, they run the other way, basically. So those people are watching have run 40 miles on Saturday, and they're now running another 40 miles on Sunday. So my whole attitude to what they'd achieved, like, just went off into a different dimension. I thought, that's incredible. I didn't even know that was possible. That was really the first time I'd heard of ultra running. And then I got into Dean Karnazes and Scott Jurek, like the big American ultra runners who made the sport famous. And I've got quite a few of them on my shelf. And I've got Dean Karnazes' book here that I got him to sign. And basically, I really got into it as a concept, but I still hadn't done one. So I just booked myself on, what was it? London to Brighton, which was 100K. So I started with a big one. So I thought, well, it's just the digits of a marathon. It's flipped around. So instead of 26, it's 62. Yeah. How bad can it be? It turned out it's quite bad. Because you get to the exhaustion you reach at a marathon, and then you think, I'm not even I'm like 40% of the way, or 35% of the way there. I've still got miles to go. But what happens is you start burning fat. You go off, but you've burned all your glucose. You take as many gels as you can, but you're not going to replace that glycogen in your muscles.
Yeah.
So your body will start choosing another fuel source. So it starts burning fat, and fat burns. It's more difficult. It's not as efficient, but it burns for longer because you've got vast reserves. Everyone, even the skinniest person's got like at least 7% body fat. So, that will fuel you for a long, long time. You won't necessarily run as fast or as easily, but you can run long after that. So I found after that, the pain kind of peaked and went down and then up and then down. And actually, I even managed to sprint finish. And I thought, how on earth is that possible? When I see the finish line, despite the fact I've run the 100K, I can still fit in a sprint somehow. So that kind of, I wouldn't say I've become a complete addict, but I do like to 3 or 4 ultras a year at least. um, and just see whether I'm still capable of. And they've not been as successful because there's no one, absolutely no one to motivate me, and no one else to watch suffering as well if I'm doing it by myself. But yeah, so that's how I got into ultra running in that crazy world.
Oh my God! Like this is the thing. Like ultra runners which come to mind. Rich Roll. Courtney De Winter. Is it De Winter?
Yeah, DeWalter.
Like,
one of those two.
Yeah, no, that lady is like a beast. I don't care what anyone says. Like when you run an ultra race and then you have enough time to like sleep, you could have slept for 8 hours, like went for a nice breakfast, and then basically, cheer the second place person on after being well rested. that destroys it all. It's like, you know, it's like, how long have you been here? 10 hours. How you doing?
That's incredible. Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
So I mean, they seem superhuman. I mean, I don't get anywhere near the front of these races, but it's just, I think they have reserves of willpower that most of us can't even dream of. These people.
I think you're pretty close to that dream, sir. Look, this is the thing. Look, okay. When someone when you go, I'm going to run the ultra marathon. Yeah, that's like running a 5K. That's one thing. Running a 10K, half a marathon, a marathon. That's another thing. Then when you're going, I'm going to run an ultra marathon. You go, okay, wow, that's great. But when you go, you know what? I'm going to run 2,300 miles, like just for the grins. Like that.
Yeah.
What possesses you to do that? That is a bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that I imagine you're referring to Paris to Istanbul, a little run I did in 2018.
Yeah.
Well, there was some precedent because I had run from John O'Groats to Land's End, which is at least a precedented scale of long distance adventure. There's lots of people hike it, and there's even more people probably cycle it. And there's a small select group of people who've run it. And believe it or not, the record is under 9 days, which is just mind blowing. But I imagine that guy did not enjoy himself for very much of that experience. Yeah. But I decided my thing is adventure running. So I like to be in the environment and enjoy running through the environments that I'm in. So I'm not interested in the fastest route. I like to go from A to Z. So the shortest route from the length of Britain is about 879 miles. But you're going to be running along A roads all the time. And you're going to be like trucks rumbling past, and it's going to be horrendous. So when I did John O'Groats to Land's End, I chose 1,174 mile route. I actually thought it was 1,100 miles, but I got lost enough times. I added an extra 74 miles on top.
Why not?
And it took like a month and a half, and I got horribly injured. I learned a huge amount from doing so. And I wrote a book about it called Downhill From Here. And then a few years later, I was single at the time, and I had very little tie me down, so I had a lot of freedom to do crazy adventures. I was in a relationship when I came up with my next one, and of course, I wanted to do something overseas because I run the length of Britain. I want to do something else somewhere else.
Yeah.
So while I'm actually in a queue to get this book signed, like, got his signature in, very proud. While I'm queuing to meet this hero who's inspired me in a book signing in Piccadilly, I'm at the back of the queue. There's about 50 people in front of me, and Dean's talking to everyone for about four or 5 minutes each. It's going to take ages maybe 2 or 3 minutes, but it's going to take me ages to get there. Meanwhile, my partner Aradna is sitting there thinking, if I'm going to support Gavin doing a crazy adventure, I don't want to be in the Appalachians. I don't want to be in the middle of backwoods America in a van by myself, with coyotes and wolves and bears. So where would I want to go? And then she had the bright idea of she just remembered that there was a train called the Orient Express, and it started in the late 19th century, and it was the first pan-continental train service. And it went from Paris to Istanbul via some amazing locations. Strasbourg, Munich, Vienna. See if I can remember now. Budapest, Bucharest, and Istanbul. So those are amazing places, and those are places that she would want to visit. So she was thinking, well, maybe she was thinking naively she'd have lovely city breaks while I'm like running, and then she'd just go and pick me up at the end of the day.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite like that, but so by the time I came back from having my book signed, I'm all thrilled at having met Dean Carnazzo. She's saying, Gavin, do you think you could run across Europe? I went, what? Are you mad? That's a whole continent. But she proved to me that, you're not running from like the furthest point to the furthest point. I suppose that would be the south of Spain to like the furthest point of Turkey or something.
Yeah. You're
going to run from Paris to Istanbul, following roughly the route of the train, but not exactly, just stitching together all the main stations. And that works out, as you say, 2,300 miles. But it goes through some incredible bits of scenery. And I decided I would include a bit of the Alps because I didn't want to miss out the Alps by skimming over the top of them. And then it crosses the Carpathian Mountains as well in Romania. So, yeah, I've only ever been to France. And I'm going to discover so many things and see so many countries I've never set foot in before, let alone set foot across the whole of them. So yeah, that was the plan. So we both thought this will be a great adventure, and we'll do it together. And what we'll do is I could go into like endless detail of the camper van, but basically we bought from my sister a Mazda Bongo. It's a very uncool 8-seater vehicle, but we ripped out the interior and we put in cabinets and a fold-out bed and a sink and cooker and everything else. Basically, we made ourselves a camper van, and that was our home for 5 months, both going there and ambling back from Istanbul.
Good God. Wait, so 5 months, how many miles were you covering a day?
So I think it works out as about 21 miles a day. And I think I had something like, I don't really have more than about 5 or 6 days off. And those were days spent in these cities that we passed along there. Because part of the deal was when we get to one of these major cities, we'll have a day where I'm not running and it will just be tourists. But of course, what that means is I don't have a day of running, but I have a day of walking around Vienna. So like for 7 hours. But that was great. That was part of the adventure as well, was like having this weird mental switch of, I seem to be a tourist today. I'm eating cake and walking around looking at beautiful buildings and going into galleries. And then tomorrow I'm going to put on Lycra and run through the mountains in the rain.
Wow. No,
very strange.
That is quite crazy. That is, like, how long did it take you to do this, like the 21 miles each day? How long were you running for?
Yeah. So it's 110 days. I probably ran for about somewhere between 6 and 8 hours a day, maybe sometimes up to 10 hours. I'm not running fast, because, after, you'll know this from your 31 days, after you've done your legs are still feeling the pain from previous days. You can do it, but there's a cost, and the cost generally seems to be pace. So I'm not really, it's not, actually, there were some days where I was managing to run like 9 or 10 minute miles, or even faster. Like I just had an amazing day, but most of the time I'm running like a fast jog, I would say. And also I'm going over, through forests, muddy forests, and over mountains and dusty plains and all sorts of crazy environments, and having to navigate using Google Maps for most of it, to be honest. So I and I'm stopping and taking pictures. So I'm not like Forrest Gump, like racing along, like dead, head set straight to north and just go for it. I'm enjoying the experience, and every so often I'll stop and have a snack, and then I'll keep running again. And we arranged for Aradna would meet me at lunchtime each day and at the end of the day. And some days when I started late, she'd only meet me at the end of the day, and I just fend for myself in the middle. So I spent a lot of time by myself, obviously, as did she. That was a challenge as well at times. how much of your own company do you want?
Well, yeah, indeed. Like I would imagine, like, okay, while you're doing like this sort of a mission, because yeah, you're quite like you've got your focus through that whole sort of period of time. It must be a little bit more difficult for her because it's a case of okay, yes, she drive if she drives to from point A to point B, then there's a lot of downtime. It's like there's going to be some parts along the journey where there's going to be nothing to really see. And oh, look, another tree, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, well, actually, not as much as you might think, because when you think of her support duties, she's got, well, one, she doesn't know this country or city that she's in, so she's got to find somewhere for us to park up and sleep for the night incognito, because we can't afford to stay in campsites, and quite often there aren't any. And she's got to find water, clean, fresh drinking water, food, fuel, and at times we've got to figure out how we're going to get a Wi-Fi signal to, because she's still got to do bits of work as well. She's got like freelance jobs that she's trying to somehow manage through all this. So times when she was just sitting twiddling her thumbs were few and far between. And she did manage to make some time now and again to actually have, to go and see some incredible places. She visited a monastery and a brewery, and she saw various things that I didn't see while I was running, and I saw obviously lots of things that she didn't see. But I don't think she was bored very much, and I don't think I was bored. I think we were both a little frustrated that sometimes we would have an amazing experience that we were not able to share,
Right.
And that was a bit sad. But then obviously we would then meet up in the evening, and we'd try and make time when possible to go and have dinner. Well, when we're in the Champagne region, you can't run through the Champagne region, even out of season as it was, without having some champagne. So one night we found a little champagne tasting bar in Epernay, which is like the capital of the Champagne region. So we've got to like try some local champagne. So we did a tasting with food, and that was really nice. I mean, we got our van almost locked in a place like a leisure centre car park where we shouldn't have parked. But apart from that, and then I had to drive. I thought I was going to park here. If I had like 2 glasses of champagne, like I shouldn't be driving. But anyway,
in the Champagne,
all part of the joy.
Yeah, no, I can.
Yeah, you can. So yeah, you've got to make the most of. I'm not trying to get FKT, like fastest known time, for anything. Although technically, I suppose I have the fastest known time for running from Paris to Istanbul, following the route of the Orient Express, because it's only me that's done it. So until someone else does it,
no, you should apply.
Record holder.
Yeah, you should apply to the Guinness Book of Records and like go, hey, there you go. That's how.
Just make up a new challenge.
Yeah. Like, so with like these running missions and like, what is the challenge for you? What is the sort of driving force, would you say?
Well, I find on foot is the best way to get to know any country, to get to know any environment if you physically battled with it. So I just love running. I love running through forests and along the sides of rivers and by the sea, and also I just really love being out in nature. And also exploring little villages and cities and finding hidden little trails that many people don't know about. But the real challenge is mental. There's a physical challenge in keeping going, but it's the mind that's going to stop you more than your body. Your body will endure a lot more than you're mentally capable of a lot of the time. So I would just use techniques like setting a goal of, okay, so by lunchtime, I want to reach this village. It doesn't really matter whether I start fast, end slow, or just keep an even pace, as long as by this time I'm there and we'll meet for lunch. Now, quite often I'd be like an hour, 2 hours late because I'd obviously completely underestimated the terrain, or I've got lost. So I'm stumbling around a French forest up to my knees in mud. There's a fence where I'm supposed to have a trail, and I'm going, this isn't going to work. Like, I'm going to have to find another route. Or I'm battling through some like hideous, thickety, thorn-laden forest in Bulgaria somewhere, or running away from packs of feral dogs in Romania. So yeah, it wasn't always the easiest task, but knowing that my partner and my lovely little van, which we've physically created ourselves, is waiting for us, and dinner. Food is a great motivator, obviously, when you're burning so many calories.
I can imagine.
You just fantasize about stuffing your face constantly. That's one other thing I forgot to mention. So Radna's got to continuously stock up the food supplies, because I'm like a ravenous cloud of locusts at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah,
like the many challenges, mental and physical, but it's all new. It's all an adventure, you know. None of it's boring, so that kept me going, really.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like, this is the thing. Like, like, well, I've got to say, when I did watch the trailer of, was it The Long Run, where, like, yeah, you went, okay, I'm standing here, and now it's time. I'm gonna go running in that direction. I'm not too sure how you manage to, like, okay, get to the edge, like get to a cliff, looking out at sea, but like, yes, there must be a story to tell, right there. It's like, yeah, but like sort of going through that and like just like going, okay, off I go, without sort of checking out the terrain. People might go, that is like, wow, what? Why did you not send people ahead of you? But when it's just the two of you, you just got to just go for it, you know?
Yeah, well, you can't, not with something that's 2,300 miles across countries you've never visited. You can look on, when we did on satellite, on Google Maps, Google Earth, whatever.
Yeah.
But things that look like trails on maps aren't necessarily trails in reality, because you've got to remember the data that is given to Google Maps from Romania might not necessarily be up to date. You know, they're not, because they're not driving cars up these lanes. Sometimes what's labeled as a road actually is like the middle of a green field, but a lot of the time it may have been a path, you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
At one point I'm running along what's supposed to be a road in this was in Bulgaria, I think, as well, and I can tell that it once was a road, but there's trees growing out of it now, and there's like a massive rip, a section that's like 10 feet just been ripped out, like by some huge monster. And it's clearly not been driven for like 50 or 60 years. I have no idea why it's still on a map. And I'm thinking, this is supposed to be my route for the day. So I'm battling through the undergrowth on that particular day. So even if you have a map and you've done some research, it's going to throw all sorts of crazy stuff at you. And the main thing is, that's why I didn't set 40 miles or something for a day. I set like 20 miles, 20 odd miles, that'll do me. And so even if it's having a bad day, I'll get there by dark, you know, one way or another. So I didn't really have, I think I had a couple of days where it almost got dark on me, and I'm in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, the timing generally worked out fairly well.
Yeah. No, but like from this, like, okay, I was gonna like ask, like, okay, how you documented it and like your whole journey, like the number of journeys you've done, because like, yeah, you've got yourself 3 books, which you've like basically done, running the Orient, downhill from here, and running the Coyote and the Star. Is that right?
Yeah, that running Coyote, which is here, is actually, even though it's got the word running in the title, it's not about running. It's a book of short stories. So I also write fiction, and I decided in lockdown to start writing stories again. So I had this weird technique I discovered where I went to this website called textfixer.com, and it's got a facility there to generate random words.
Okay.
So you select the number of words and it will just come up with 5 nouns, adjectives, verbs. And I would look at those words and then just come up with an idea. Or maybe quite often I go for a run, and by the time I come back, an idea is sort of formed, and then I wrote a story about it. And I recorded quite a few of them on my YouTube, on a YouTube channel that, for whatever reason, I have no idea how to promote properly. So most of those stories are on that. It's called Gavin Boyter's Unforeseen Tales. And I suppose it's like a mental version of my exploratory running. So yeah, with the random words, I don't know. Again, don't know what's going to come up. Something just presents itself, and I have to deal with it. And they're pretty short. Most of them are like 1,000 words or a little bit more.
Okay. What
So
type of stories
that's the
are
beauty.
they?
Well, there's a range. There's some science fiction stories. There actually is. There actually are. There's one about running. It's more of a ghost, but it's more of a ghost story about a runner who gets lost in a forest and encounters some spooky figures whilst climbing a tree to see where he is. So, but there's all sorts in there. There's a couple of slice of life. There's a couple of things about lockdown. There's one called Duet that got published in a literary magazine, which is about a young woman who's she wants to be a pop singer. You know, she's recording. She's doing like YouTube clips of her singing various songs, covers and stuff. And one day while she's practicing, she hears another voice, sort of almost like duetting with her, and it's the opera singer guy who lives in a just like on the tenement, but one level down, one door down. He's like a middle-aged opera singer, like a completely different world, but he's sort of doing a little descant and backing to her song. And they end up it's in full lockdown, so they're not allowed to meet. So they sort of talk across their balconies and they start harmonizing together. I won't tell you how it develops, but it's just one of the nice little story of connection. So quite a lot of them I describe as stories of hope and connection. So I like to give people, I like to have, I generally like to have some optimism in my fiction.
Yeah. Like with that, how many stories did you collect with like Running Coyote? Sorry.
There's 48 stories in here, and that's about slightly less than half of my output at the moment. I chose the best of them, hopefully, and so I think 16 of them were published in literary magazines. That's a whole different marathon, really, getting stuff published in literary magazines. If anyone out there is listening and you want to write short stories, the main advice I'll give you when you want to get them published is make a spreadsheet and just send a batch of stuff out. Just keep sending stuff out. Every time you get a rejection, send 2 stories out. So it builds exponentially. And you will, if you have any talent, you've got to have some talent, obviously, but you'll find an audience eventually. But you do have to really work at it. You can't be beaten down by rejection because,
yeah. No, like there's the thing, like with regards to anything like that, you got to have that thick skin and like the sort of stubborn determination of a bloody donkey, and just keep pushing forward with that. Like to go, through my lockdown. There are some people which will say, lockdown, I did X, I did Y, I did Z, and there are going to be people which went, I just watched a whole bunch of Netflix and that was it. But to write almost 100 stories over the course of lockdown, that is a hell of an achievement. Be that 1,000 words or even more, because I wouldn't be able to do it. I try to think of 1,000 stories. I might have a couple in me, a couple of good stories, but almost 100, I don't know.
Well, I think I've narrowed it down to 2 things I can do. One is run for a long time, and the other one is come up with ideas for stories. Those are the 2 things I'm good at. So I've focused in on it. It was only taken 50 years to figure it out. I mean, I was writing short stories when I was 4, so it should have been obvious that I loved doing that. But yeah, I've always written. I've just not fairly recently I've become more serious about it.
Yeah.
And now I can't imagine going for more than 2 or 3 days without writing. Probably I would go more days without running than without writing, but I'm a bit like Murakami, whose book I've got here somewhere. Very recommended if anyone's interested in the connection between writing and running. Yeah, I'm plugging other people's books, but Haruki Murakami, what I talk about when I talk about running, because he's, as well as being a great author, a great writer of short stories and novels. He runs almost every day, and I think now he's in his 60s. But and he finds he gets ideas. They just come to him when he's running in a way that they don't in other forms of life. And I think it's something. It's probably something with alpha waves or flow state or something. You get into this sort of almost trance-like state sometimes when you're running, when it's going well, when it's easy, and your mind just starts drifting, and it can be very creative. I think it does. You don't need to be a writer. You could be a creative in some other way. You could be, you could be a chef. You could be an entrepreneur. Whatever it is. I think it frees up a part of the brain that's hard to access somehow. I don't know the full connection. There has been some research done on it, but I haven't really studied it enough. But I do believe that running and writing are two sort of processes that for me work in sync.
I think with regards to like people's mind state when it comes to running, I think they fall into sort of two camps. One, I would say, is just hardened will and just going like, I'm going to do this and I'm just going to go with it. Nothing is going to stop me from hitting that distance, hitting that goal in this particular time. And I think the other are people who sort of go into a flow state like yourself, with regards to sort of being able to drift and like sort of like a kind of like a running meditation, if you get what I mean. So they kind of like lose themselves in the run, and it's like, so, okay, oh yeah, you've just run 10 miles. So okay, you're right, no worries. And you could let them run and run and run and run forever in one day. And I just like, how can I put it? It's very hard. It's very hard to find anyone what I'd say falls outside of those camps. I call you a flow runner. I might be wrong about that. You might see yourself completely differently. What do you say?
Well, yeah, I have tried chasing down times and trying to stick to a plan.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. The first time I did the London Marathon, it's much younger then. I did 3:16, but I was trying to beat 3 hours. So although part of me was quite happy with 3:16, because that's pretty good. That puts you in like the top 5% or something. You're still over an hour behind the winner. They've watched a couple of episodes of something on Netflix, and you're still running. But I did want to beat 3 hours, so I tried again. Was the next year. I tried again, 2005, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I went off way too fast the second time. I felt like I was in that flow state, and I sort of lost my sense of pace. And I got to the halfway point in 1 hour 22, which was way ahead of what I should have been doing. It's too fast.
Right.
And I could see it on the faces there were members of the running club I was a member of watching. I could see confusion in their eyes as well as like clapping. They were like, "Why is he here? He should be here in about 20 minutes." And I got progressive. Basically, I died horribly at the second half of the race. I just went down and down and down. My pace dropped like a stone. But here's the thing. I got my fastest time. I ended up 3:11. So I beat my previous time by 5 minutes by using the worst technique. And I still haven't, and I never beat that. 3 years later, I tried again. I was 3:17 this time. Then I've tried 2 more times, 3:30, 3:40. So I don't know what lessons I can possibly, the worst lesson I can't possibly say, run as fast as you can and then just slow down. That won't work for most people. So I can't do negative splits. I don't understand these people who run the second half of a marathon as fast or faster than the first half. I don't get it. I don't see how that's possible.
No, like there is another ultra runner, like let's just say, when I talk about this guy, like he has to be spoken with sort of hushed tones. They're like former Navy SEAL, one Mr. David Goggins. Like, you know of him?
I've heard of him. I haven't read much about him, but yeah, he seems to be a machine, doesn't he?
Well, like this is the thing. Anything you put him too, he will like go at it with a passion. He's one of those like flow state. No, he's just like bloody minded, bloody determined, and yeah, he makes it happen as much as he can. Like the first time he foolishly did this normal, like this run around the track as many times as possible, like a 1 mile track with a slight incline. Like he went out at a clip, and it was just like, yeah, going through. The race organizers looking at him like, you need to stop because you're going far too fast.
Yeah.
And like when he got about mile 50, it was like, I messed up.
Yeah.
I really messed up. All I've got to say is like, he was lucky to be alive, from what everyone says. And it was like, right, he messed himself up. He couldn't like he sat down in a chair, and he was in so much pain he couldn't actually get up for that.
Yeah, that's I feel like I've had that feeling. It's awful. I ran the longest race I've ever done is 100 miles.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, I was in so much pain I could hardly walk to the train station, which is about like a few hundred yards away, and it felt like it might as well been on Mars. Like,
yeah,
I had to get 2 old people driving past in their Ford Fiesta or whatever, stopped and gave me a lift. They could just see how much pain I was in hobbling along the road.
Oh my Lord.
Because I just pushed myself beyond reasonable limits. But I finished the race. So, and I wouldn't have done, if it was 100 miles without it being in a race context, I don't think I would have finished that day. I think I would have just had to throw in the towel. But because there was a medal, a stupid medal at the end of it, I persevered. And like an idiot, I've signed up to the same race again in October, 3 weeks after the London Marathon. So that'll be fun.
Okay, so you're doing the marathon, and then you're doing a 100-mile ultra marathon just 3 weeks after.
I've got 3 weeks to recover, so that should be okay. Fingers crossed. And actually, it's not such a crazy idea. It might be the other way around if you did the 100-mile first and then a marathon, but because I'll be trained up for the marathon, as long as I maybe run a couple of times after the marathon when I start feeling I'm recovering, I should still be fully trained for marathon distance. And I honestly don't know how you train for ultra marathons beyond upping from like 50 or 60 miles a week to maybe closer to 100. But I can't run any more than about 60, 65 miles a week without getting injured, except for these adventures, weirdly enough. So it doesn't really make any sense. But I think if I could run all day and pace it out, then I can run 20 miles a day indefinitely.
Yeah.
But if I'm trying to squeeze in an 18-mile training run in 4 hours or 3 hours or something, and then I'm trying to do the same, a 12-mile the next day, and then 6 miles the day after that, and then 12 miles after that, fitting it around work and everything else, then that's when injury starts creeping up. Because, as in the Goggins example, you go too fast. You're trying to squeeze too much into too small a space, and the body just says, no, I've had enough of this.
Yeah. No,
So,
I was going to say, with regards to the time factor, yeah, like when I was running sort of 19 to like a marathon, like on a sort of daily basis, it was like, okay, I up with the lark. The lark did not even didn't even know me. It was like, what? Who are you, and why you run? How long have you been out here for? Because you have to, like, I had to get up some mornings around about, say, 2 o'clock, and then basically hit the road, and then basically, 2 to 3 o'clock in the morning, and just like go for it. And yeah, when you finish and you just like get home, eat, and it's like, I won't lie, fortunately, I had time to sort of be able to rest and recover, but if I had to do a sort of 9 to 5 job at the time, I would have been, no, I don't think I would have been able to do it. I don't think it's actually.
So what did you do? Why did you do that out of interest? What was motivating you?
Like basically, like there's a couple of times throughout the year where I think I need to have a sort of reset. And I basically, like, I'm a person who loves going to the gym. I can't even hide it. It's like, yeah, I love going to the gym. Gyms would close at that precise moment in time.
Oh, yeah.
And like, it was like, right, if I'm not doing something to keep myself like active, I need to do physical activities to sort of keep me sort of sane, keep me sort of balanced. If I don't do that, I look for things to cause mischief and a little bit of mayhem. And like, seeing as, yes, all I would do would annoy my lady, and she'll most already come after me with a passion. I like my life. It's like, so, so I decided oh my God, I decided in, oh my God, was it April? No, I decided in March to like go, okay, yeah, let's do that. And yeah, just went for it. Because before, earlier than that, one of the things, like referring back to David Goggins, like I did the 4-4-48, 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So,
all right. Yeah.
So basically up doing that. And yes, that was another sort of test of wills, just to keep me going through lockdown, because it's very easy to sort of drop into not a very sort of productive mindset, like mental, like sort of keeping yourself mentally together. So I use those sort of things to sort of like, yeah, keep me spurred on, keep me motivated, keep me energized, even though, yeah, it's a killer distance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's probably why I'm doing these sort of strange runs and strange little challenges. I try to change it up a bit so it's not all about physical exhaustion. Like one thing I did, you know how people using Strava write letters or draw pictures on the streets. So I thought I'll have a go at that. So I thought I'm going to write the word hope. I'm going to write a nice positive message on the streets of London. What I didn't count on is that the streets of London are a mess, and it's hard to spell anything. Like, we don't have the grid system. A lot of these runners that do that are using an American grid system of roads, so it's easy to write anything.
Yeah.
I think I live in West London. How on earth am I going to write hope? So I did manage to write the H and the O quite well. And at that point, I've already run about 7 miles. I think this is quite a long run, actually. And I plotted it all out on a map. But when I got to the top of the P, I realized it's all living gated communities, and like, you know, it's Chelsea I'm in suddenly. And these are private roads. They're on the map as roads, but you can't get into them behind a gate.
Yeah.
So I had to extend the P way out into a weird, ugly shape and try and join it back up. And then that distracted me. And then I did the E, and I thought I'd finished. And I remembered I hadn't done the stem of the P. I hadn't done the bottom bit. So I had to rerun back up the letters and finish off the P. And so that became a funny little, it's like a little comic interlude in the book of me trying to do something daft, like spell the word hope. So now I've got a photograph of the map where it looks pristine and perfect, and my version. You could just about see it. So yeah, amongst ultras and other crazy things like running up Ben Nevis, there's me trying to spell the word hope and run between all the stations on the Piccadilly line. That was another thing. I decided to try and do that the day after getting my second COVID shot. And yeah, that turned out to be not so easy, because seemingly it drains you of energy having a vaccination.
Well, yeah, there is that. But like, okay, running from Cockfosters all the way to Uxbridge, okay, that is not the easiest route to do, because you, like, if you're going, like, well, if you're starting from West London, you now are going.
Yeah, I started I wanted to start at Heathrow, but for various complicated reasons, I couldn't get to the terminal that I was going to run out of. And you can't really run between the terminals without being arrested, probably. So I started at Hatton Cross and ran to Cockfosters. But I couldn't do it in one day. It was too much. So I broke it into 2 days. So I did 17 miles the first day and 14 miles the second day. But it's so many challenges of navigation, and for some reason at the end, there seems to just be endless hills, and like Cockfoster's not Oakwood, it's like this. It's up,
Yes. Yeah.
Northeast London, it's hilly.
No, like basically, I
But
live.
it's really pretty.
Yeah. No, I live in Crouch End, and like this is the whole thing. I know
Oh
that
yeah.
part of the world well, and like, yeah, all I've got to simply say, yeah, you should run the other way. I know, like I would have told you, like if I knew you then, I'd be like, go the other way. Why? It'll be easier for you towards the end because, oh my God, the hills in sort of that part of North London, boy, a challenge to say the least.
Yeah, well, I used to live before I moved to West London. I used to live in just off the Holloway Road. So then I had access to hills, or not, they're not tremendous hills, but I used to run up the Parkland Walk and run around Hampstead Heath and what was the other big ones? Now, if I want a hill, I have to go to Wimbledon or something. I have to like run up, or like there's a puny one at the side of Holland Park if I want to go up and down the footpath.
Yeah.
But I run now. I have the Thames to run along, which is fantastic because yeah, theoretically I can run. I don't know. I've never tried to see how far I can run along the Thames. I've got as far as I did. Well, actually, I did a 100k race from Richmond to Henley last year. I think that was good actually. That was painful, but it was so beautiful that it distracted me a lot from what was going on with my legs. And I did it a reasonable, I think I did 13 hours or something. 13 hours? Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good time for considering what I expected to happen. And then I went for a swim the next day in the River Thames, dodging the people blasting by in their yachts.
That is some crazy tea right there. Crazy tea. I have to say, like, yeah, for one of your runs, you decided to like, okay, running is not the thing for me just for this. You went, you know what? Let me do a documentary and like, yeah, record people. Was that, yeah, that was the documentary, The Long Run. What, like, is that correct or am I wrong about that?
Yeah, I'm still finishing that project, believe it or not, like
okay.
6 years later. So because I filmed 450 hours of my adventure, and I've now got it down to 5. But I had to take some time off it to work on other projects. So now, hopefully, this, fingers crossed, this year, I should get that down to 2 hours, maybe 2.5 or something. We'll see, and then try and find an outlet. But I know there's quite a lot of interest in ultra running and adventure running, so I'm fairly confident I can find someone to take an interest in the film. Especially as on day 5, I nearly drown, I nearly die. You've probably seen some of the footage of that. I cut a long story short, I took a wrong turning around a Scottish mountain and ended up wandering through this massive estate of forests and really rough ground by the side of a massive river with no bridges for miles and miles and miles. And it was twilight by the time I came to a crisis point and thought, I'm going to have to cross that river. And I don't know how wide it is. I don't know how deep it is. I know how wide it is, 40 feet wide. And it's like September, I think it was, late September. So pretty cold in Scotland. It gets down to 0 then.
I ended up in a sunny place, hot, bathing in sunshine. That's Scotland.
Yes, it's noted for its luxurious beaches and balmy climate.
Absolutely.
So I thought, well, I can't camp out tonight. I'll die of exposure. I'm wearing Lycra and shorts and everything. So I held my little GoPro, which I'm filming. I'm talking into it to keep me sane, and my mobile phone above my head. Everything else in the pack can get wet. It doesn't matter. And I just march out into the river. So I've got this on film. But the weird thing is the camera's facing out. So it's not facing my expression. For most of it, you can only see this beautifully calm, rippling river, lovely sound, lovely sunset, and the sound of a man swearing violently in the background and drowning, like, thrashing. Occasionally you see my legs come up because as I get to the middle of the river, it goes up to my neck. And then the current is so strong, it sweeps my feet out from under me. It sweeps my feet off the rocks. At that point, I'm still holding my gear, or this is like hundreds of pounds worth of kit. And I'm swimming with both legs and one arm backwards towards the opposite bank, battling through clouds of midges. It's actually very funny in a dark sort of way. So that's like the centerpiece of the movie, and that happened on the 5th day. It'd be nice if it had happened at the climax, but so the rest of it is like, how do I come to terms with clearly I'm not sensible and equipped to do an adventure of this scale, because the first time I tried anything like this, and yeah, there are lots of other things that go wrong as well.
I can imagine.
And lots of beautiful scenery, around the West Highland Way, around the Great Glen Way, the West Highland Way, the Pennine Way. That's 268 miles in itself. And eventually in the canals down to the Midlands, and then I eventually ran through Dartmoor and onto the Southwest Coastal Trail to Land's End. So some of the most beautiful scenery in Britain, but challenging. And yeah, so it's been quite difficult to edit all this stuff down, because I've got enough for a mini series, but I'm not famous enough to sell a television concept. Plus, Sean Conway, you may have heard of, another sort of wacky adventurer. He'd be a good person to have on if you get him. He'd previously he also ran John O'Groats to Land's End a little bit before me, but he didn't get his book out till after I got mine out. But being an absolute gent, he actually wrote a crit on my book jacket. He's done it on both book jackets, actually. So he basically helped me sell my John O'Groats to Land's End book while he was still writing his own. So that was really nice. Anyway, what was the point of talking about Sean? Can't remember. But yeah, there's a precedent for crazy adventures from eccentrics going from John O'Groats to Land's End and vice versa. But mine was probably one of the most accident-prone stories that you'll come across. Yeah. So yeah, if you like stories of somebody struggling to do something impressive and getting it horribly wrong, Downhill from Here is the one for you. I would say.
I hear you. But like, okay, with 450 hours of footage, that's what you said to me. Yeah. Or did I mishear you with that amount of footage you've got? How was it, 450 or 400?
Yeah, we say things. I had a GoPro on my head, which was filming pretty much all the time when I was running. To be honest, I'm not going to use much of that because it's not stabilized. It's a generation 5 of GoPro, so it doesn't have internal stabilization. But the rest of it was shot on a range of cameras, mostly another handheld GoPro with a stabilizing gimbal. So that looks really good. And then I had a support driver who was also filming me from every so often along the way and filming landscape shots just to fill in. So there's so much to choose from. I could make about 5 movies.
Yeah.
But I don't want to bore people, but nor do I want to cheat them of the epic nature of the adventure, because I did see Sean Conway's Discovery Channel program. That's why I mentioned him. Yeah, he did a 2-part series, a 2-part show about his John O'Groats to Land's End. But I felt it was too short because I wanted more. You've just skipped through Scotland in the space of half an hour. I want more.
But this is
so I don't want to cheat people.
Yeah, no, my point is, like, you've got all of this footage. Like, you obviously know how to put up a decent edit and everything like that. Why don't you just simply edit these down and put them on YouTube? Because it sounds like you've got enough to do like a number of 10-minute shows if you wanted, or if you wanted to do it longer. Yeah. And like,
that might be an option, but it's just monetizing it, whether I can make back the vast expense of the project on YouTube, because YouTube's a challenge. Getting the algorithm to work in your favor is like an arcane art.
I think, like, this is the thing. I would say, yeah, when you first launch it, it might take a little bit of time to get some traction. But if you've got it out there and you hit the ultra running community, or people who like in the sort of local community where you were going through in Scotland and everything like that, you never know where it could take you. It might be a case of it might open up other avenues, or if you really want to put a longer format together of a documentary sense, you can put the whole documentary together and sell it on if you can, like if you will, or if you've got enough traction, do a bigger documentary and just put it out on YouTube and just see what happens from there. But I think
I'll probably try to sell the documentary as a feature first. Because, I mean, there is, for example, I believe, a trail running film festival in America. And there might even be more than one now, because it's such a big deal. Trail running and ultra running and stuff has become a bit of a boom sport.
Yeah.
And because it always happens in beautiful places, it's very cinematic. So there's quite a lot of movies have come out and clips and things. So there's a whole festival devoted to it. So I'd probably try and launch it at one of these events. And then maybe pick up a sale on the basis of that. But as you say, ultimately it could be a case that it becomes a YouTube series. Like maybe I'd actually thought about breaking it down into small chunks, but that might work really well, because you might have 100 10-minute pieces building up this epic story, each of which has a different little theme or lesson to it. That would be a lot cheaper to do. So we'll see. Anyway, there's possibilities, but anyway, anyone out there wants to help fund the financing of an amazing, adventurous documentary about running from John O'Groats to Land's End, then I have the footage.
Yeah, I have to ask. Look, where would be a place you would love to go on an ultra run you've never been before?
Yeah, well, I do have a bit of a. I have a bit of a fantasy about Patagonia. Basically, a large swathe of South America, Central and South America. There's through hikers have created this kind of unofficial walking route from the top of, where is it again? Can't remember. Argentina. But well, anyway, it stretches all the way down sort of largely the west coast of South America, ending in what's it, Tierra del Fuego? Can't remember. The southernmost point, I think. And it's huge. I mean, I don't know how long it is, like 6,000 miles or something crazy. So that's a massive undertaking. And if I did that, I'd probably want to do it with carrying a tent, believe it or not, carrying equipment for camping, because there's going to be places where it's not going to be possible to do anything else. So I'd have to put together, as well as all the visas and travel and all that sort of stuff, I'd have to put together the world's lightest camping kit. I have a friend, Chris Thrall, who also ran John O'Groats to Land's End, and he did it like that because he used to be in the army. He did it with a big pack with all of his camping stuff. Ultimately ended up throwing so much of it away because it was just too much to carry. But yeah, it's potentially quite a dangerous place, parts of it. There are conflicts, there are problematic governments, there are drug lords, there's wild animals, there's the Andes, a fairly massive range of mountains. But there's also spectacular scenery there, and beautifully hardly discovered trails. So that would be a great one to do. Who knows when? Before I'm 60, let's say. Let's give myself enough time to plan that one. But then, slightly more manageable, there's New Zealand. There's a trail called the Te Aroara Trail, which goes from the top of North Island to the bottom of South Island.
Yeah.
Roughly this, it's a little bit longer than Britain, I think. It's maybe 1,400 miles or something, but it's a route it is taken by through hikers and possibly one or two runners. I think actually someone called Anna McNuff, she wrote a book about. That's the only thing that puts me off, is that there's a book about it, because I always think if I'm going to have an adventure that extreme, I want there to be a book at the end of it. But there's probably room for 2 books about running the length of New Zealand. That also would be quite extreme because you've probably seen Lord of the Rings, so you've seen a lot of the scenery of New Zealand, and it's dramatic.
A Lord of the Rings, you mean the advert for the New Zealand tourist board? Every time it opens up on the
Yeah,
page, that's like,
the extended.
even.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to tell what's CG and what's real mountains because New Zealand is such an underpopulated country,
Mm.
but with some staggering scenery. And this trail apparently takes no prisoners. You've got to ford many rivers. There's the whole areas where you might have to wait a week till the river's gone down enough for you to get across it. But there's an established network. It's like American trails. There's an established network of little cabins along the way that you can, little communal places where you can camp. So you don't have to do it entirely. In fact, I don't even know if you have to do any of it with camping equipment. But anyway, that would be one that's more feasible. But I have to earn some money. I have to live a relatively normal life for a little bit before I can do anything, that extreme again. Plus, I have a film in development. There's another project, which is a fiction, a thriller called 20 Questions, and that has a chance of happening in the next year or two. So I'd probably have to be either in the UK or the States for that. So I've got a lot of irons in the fire that will dictate where my running adventures go. So I had to be quite flexible, really. I'd like to think that maybe I could get to the point where I could say to my agent or a publisher, I'm thinking of running the length of New Zealand or Patagonia. What do you think of the potential of a book? And they might give me an advance, which would help fund the project. So yeah, that's possible as well. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. No, I think you should, because like this is the thing. Like I think doing the documentation of your sort of journey in a book, that's great and all. And like, you know what I mean? I think people really benefit from that. But like, yeah, if you also did the sort of documentation of it on a YouTube or basically on your website where you're uploading film to it, like, yes, this is the equipment I need. And like you're going through that in detail and basically, yeah, going through your sort of day-to-day, what sort of food you need and everything like this. I think it really like hit a very good poignant for quite a lot of people, because look, it's a growing community, and like if people are not into the running, they're gonna damn well love the adventure. And look, gentlemen like yourself, you're gonna get a number of people like going, okay, yeah, I can do that, and like across the whole age range. So yeah, I think you should do this. I think you should, like, you know what I mean, figure out another way of like getting it out on film, so you're taking advantage of all your skill range.
Yeah, the hardest thing is at the end of the day when you're really exhausted.
I know.
And then you think, I've got to edit and upload a video clip or something. That's the challenge. You really want to hand that off to someone else, to be just like have the footage uploaded to the cloud, and then have a friend back home who's like, can you just make a video? But I don't know. Well, there's a compromise. There's definitely a compromise version where you just record one clip each day or something and upload that. And depending on whether you've got a phone signal, you might be able to do a live stream even, or Facebook Live type thing. But yeah, there's many ways to do it, to document. I've actually in running the Orient, the second book.
Yeah.
So for anyone who's watching, there is a bunch of tips between some of the chapters that basically tell you how to run one of these adventures, and it includes things like filming, includes security, kit lists, that sort of thing. So as well as being a sort of memoir of the adventure, it's a bit of a how-to as well for anyone else who wants to try. Because I feel that it's one of the best things you can do for your mental health, really, is to have an adventure. Like, it doesn't need to be running a whole continent or a country, but setting yourself a new challenge, learning a new instrument, learning a new sport, going to a country you've never been to before, learning to paddleboard, trying yoga, just anything, just if you're struggling with your day-to-day existence, I think the best thing you can do is actually, it sounds counterintuitive because you're giving yourself extra challenge,
Yeah.
but you're giving yourself a diverting challenge that's fun. And it's better if it's social as well. If you can be social and fun and teaches you a new skill, that's going to be one of the best things to take you out of your doldrums, I think.
I think it's a case of, I think anything which can put you in a slight place of discomfort, I think is like where like growth is for most people. And I just think, when you're not doing that, I see this for everyone, when you're not sort of putting your like self into that sort of place of discomfort, that's when things start to either wear you down or you go slightly wrong, if you get what I mean.
Yeah. I mean, you start questioning what the purpose of life is at that point. You're thinking, well, am I just here simply to exist? Or am I here to it's like drag every essence out of life that I can? Now, you'll not always succeed. I mean, you can't beat yourself up too much about, not being a superhero adventurer all the time. Some days you just have to sit around in your sweatpants watching Netflix and eating chocolate. That's fine. But as long as you have a balance, you've still got responsibilities and you've got people who've got families and jobs they have to hold down and everything else. But I think you just need to temper it with making time for these extraordinary experiences. It can be simple thing like just go swimming in the sea, just have a dip when it's freezing. It's the most amazing experience. It really, you will feel alive instantaneously if you go for a dip in the North Sea, which I did quite recently. And there's loads. Scotland's amazing. I spent a few weeks up in my home country recently, and I went to a place called Fife, the east coast of Fife. Got all these little fishing villages. They have these 120-year-old outdoor swimming enclosures. It's really just like a concrete enclosure or a rocky enclosure where the sea sweeps in and fills it, but there's no other facilities. I mean, there's no heating, there's no changing rooms, and some of them have sort of fallen semi into disrepair, but they're revitalizing them now, and there's a big wild swimming community has sort of grown up and is developing in those areas where these crazy people, I mean, they're 70s in the middle of winter, striding out into the waves and doing a bunch of lengths. So you're never too old to do something crazy, I think.
I'm sure. And you know what? You know where you will find me? On shore, looking at these. Just like, oh no. Just like, oh no. And like I remember being in Tenerife, going into the ocean. I was like thinking, it's a nice hot day. It's gonna be jumped in. Was like, oh my God. That made my skin crawl. And that was like in a sort of balmy 75 to 80. No way.
Yeah, I tell you, the coldest place I've swum was in Albania. That was on the way back from running the Orient adventure. We went to some other countries that we sort of thought would be really interesting and unusual. So we never thought of going to Albania before, but it's got a coastline. It's got like a mini Riviera of its own, slightly low rent, but whatever. But inland in the mountains, there's a place called the Blue Eye, which is this staggeringly beautiful natural spring. It comes right out of the rock directly up, and it basically fills this little bit, and it drifts, and then it slides off as a river. But at the source, it's the most crystal blue water you've ever seen, and terrifyingly cold because it's coming straight out of the middle of the earth. And it was like 10 degrees above zero, and typical Albania, there's all these signs saying no swimming, no swimming, and everyone who turns up for this place is wearing a swimsuit with a towel. So, what everyone does is basically they just dare themselves to go in. And I went in, and I actually managed to. I'm swimming towards this eye, and it's pushing me back with the force of the water coming out. So I'm actually swimming on the spot like I'm on a treadmill. And the water was so cold, it goes beyond you go numb basically, and actually you feel great at that point, but also you'll die. You can't feel the pain because you can't feel anything after a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can only spend a few minutes in that sort of temperature, really. So it's astonishing that anyone ever survives like a boat capsizing at sea, because I don't know how you'd survive in that water for long enough to be eaten by sharks, let alone anything else.
No.
My nightmare, I could not do. I mean, I might do an Ironman or something one day, but I would never swim the channel or anything like that, because I'm quite terrified of deep water, and I'm terrified of being chopped in half by a massive tanker, or stung by a jellyfish, or eaten by a shark, or swimming through a vast flotilla of sewage or something, or plastic bottles, or it just sounds like a nightmare scenario to me. I know there's like hundreds and hundreds of people have done it, but yeah. So there are plenty of ventures that I would turn down. They're just not suited. You just find the thing that suits you, and running long distances in hopefully a beautiful environment. I don't care if it's raining, or snowing, not really bothered. That's my thing. That's my poison.
I hear you. No, now let's see. One last question for you. Now, this most really is going to be one of the big questions of the age. Now,
oops.
Yeah.
Shall I run? Shall I run off now?
Well, it'll give me an interesting psychological profile of yourself. We shall see. Now, the cast of the Muppets?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Now, if you take the cast of the Muppets and you can place them in any film you want, past, present, future, who knows, any film you want, and have one human cast member, which film would that be?
I can't say Schindler's List. That's probably not going to work.
Oh God! Oh God.
Muppet Schindler's List. Yeah, that's good question. What a film have I? Because it works really well when it's like a classic, when it's Dickens or something. The Muppet Christmas Carol is great. I love that film with Michael Caine. It has to be something that takes itself a little bit seriously, but we're not talking Schindler's List. We're talking something serious, but not super serious. And it has to be an ensemble cast. So it has to be a lot of roles for different people. So yeah, I don't know. I wonder what a Muppet Alice in Wonderland would be like. That might be an interesting combo. With Miss Piggy as Alice getting bigger and smaller. And who would be? And maybe who would the human be in that scenario? Or maybe Alice would have to be the human, and everyone else is a Muppet. Because you could have a Cheshire Cat. Here that might be Fozzie Bear or something. You might have. I'm taking this way too seriously. I'm going to have the whole cast within like half an hour. But yeah, let's go for a Muppet Alice in Wonderland, and we'll have like Florence Pugh or some young starlet playing Alice, and everyone else is a Muppet.
Oh my God!
The Mad Hatter. I mean, the casting for the Mad Hatter. There'd be a lot of options. Possibly the crazy drummer from the band. I don't know.
Animal is the Mad Hatter. Okay.
He doesn't, although he's not very good at dialogue, so perhaps not. Maybe Miss Piggy might be the queen who's always asking for people's heads to be chopped off.
Queen of Hearts.
That sounds like a role that she was made to play, I suspect. So anyway, yeah, that's my suggestion.
Interesting. I'm liking that. You know what? That actually sounds like a very good film concept, which I now shall copyright and sell to Disney. Thank you very much.
Well, Alice in Wonderland is out of copyright, so you're
Oh,
entitled to do what
well,
you want
like,
with it.
well,
The
it's
Muppets, not
yeah.
so much.
No, well, it's a concept which I can sell. I'm sure, still. But
Yeah.
yeah, your first answer is Schindler's List with the Muppets. You're like,
That
mm.
that's going to be more of a struggle to sell to the studios, I think. Yeah. And you know what you know that scene in Schindler's List where there's everything's black and white in the whole movie, but there's this little girl in a red coat?
Yes.
Everything's black and white in the Muppet Schindler's List, apart from Kermit, who's green. That's my concept. Or Robin, his nephew, and he sings "It's Not Easy Being Green." I'm going to stop there because I'm really going to say something inappropriate.
Okay.
Get myself into trouble.
Wow.
Oh,
okay. On that happy note, well,
yeah.
on that dark and twisted note, can you tell the lovely people out there how they can find you, how they can get hold of you on the World Wide Webs?
Yes. Well, I'm on Instagram as Right to Run. I'm on Twitter under my own name, Gavin. I think it's Gavin_Boyter. But I've also got a running account, which I think is a long run film because I named it ages ago. And then I've got a website, gavinboyter.com, that lists all my various projects. And then, as I say, there's the YouTube channel, which is Gavin Boyter's Unforeseen Tales. And then, of course, finally, the books. And these are the running ones. Running the Orient downhill from here. I could do with some more reviews. So anyone who has read it or wants to read it, I'll tell you, Amazon reviews and Goodreads are the best way to support independent authors. Because without people knowing about your book, they ain't going to buy it.
Indeed.
And bookshops have struggled recently, obviously due to the pandemic. And then Running Coyote is the short story. So if you like weird and wonderful tales with a bit of hope and compassion in them, hopefully, then that might work for you. But I'm all over the place. You can just Google me. I think there's only 2 Gavin Boyters on the internet, and the other one's a young Australian poker player. I'm not him. I'm the other one. There you go.
Love it. Gavin, pleasure having you on today. You have been a
yes, very nice to meet you.
Yeah, pleasure. I'll get you back on again. I'm for sure.
That'll be good. I'll try and have some more misadventures and come up with some more crazy movie pitches.
Absolutely. You know what? You're in West London. I'm in North London. You never know. I might join you with one of these crazy.
Yeah, we could have a run. Who knows?
Indeed.
Right.
Yes. I'd like to say thank you to you, my friends, my life warriors, for staying here or watching or listening up until this point. Please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. Oh yeah, peace. And we are out.